Hello, welcome to another episode from FPL the Onion. This episode is another solo one from myself, Shlee. Unfortunately, Nick can't be with us tonight, but hopefully see him on the pod on the next episode for sure. We're still waiting for the FPL game to launch. No price change, price reveals yet, so it's probably going to be maybe 4 or 5 days until the game's launched at least. So I guess the community's kind of in limbo a little bit, but wanted to keep getting some material out there, and so there's two topics I'm going to discuss tonight in a fairly short episode, hopefully. The first is to look back at 10 plus point returns, or hauls from the 21-22 season. So some of you may have seen the Twitter analysis I did that I put out. So we're just going to go through that kind of on video and verbally rather than on Twitter. And secondly is just to look ahead at the ticker, sort of the first iteration I've made for next season, because we had the fixtures revealed from FPL last week. So we're able to start doing a little bit of planning. So yeah, everything you see tonight is on my Twitter. So if you're interested in what you see, feel free to have a look on there. My handle is just below my image on the top right. And yeah, there's high res images on Twitter, so it might be a bit easier to review things on there rather than scrolling back through this video, because obviously the quality is not going to be quite as good as on Twitter. So 3 slides on this first topic, hauls from players in the 21-22 season, and what I'm calling a haul is 10 or more points, and that's obviously pretty arbitrary, but I quite like that distinction of double-digit returns being something that we're interested in, obviously getting, especially with captains. So quick shout out to where I got this from. Give Vastav05 on Twitter a follow if you aren't already and you're interested in the sort of able to get some data from previous seasons. He has a sort of a database of this stuff, and you can download everything you need, and with a bit of Excel get the information out that I've presented tonight and plenty more. So on the left is a pie chart of the number of 10 plus point returns of players by position. So the whole kind of assumption that midfielders do better in FPL than other positions, and the kind of relative benefit of other positions. Are defenders better than attackers? Are goalkeepers in the mixture at all? So these percentages are quite interesting. And for those listening, maybe without any visuals, midfielders make up for 50% of the 10 plus point returns from last season. Compared then with defenders are next with 29%, forwards are next with 14%, and then goalkeepers with 6%. So a couple of interesting things here for me. Complete confirmation that midfielders are the most capable of getting hauls. Does that translate into we should be going 4-5-1 or 3-5-2 over any other formation, because we can get 5 of those positions getting potential hauls? Maybe, but I suppose as usual with anything, it depends on the price of those midfielders. But I think the other interesting thing is how defenders compare with forwards. I think we can kind of ignore goalkeepers. Okay, they're great if you get a 10 plus point return from them, but you're probably going to have a little bit of luck involved there with a penalty save or someone playing absolutely out of their skin. But defenders versus forwards, according to last season, and maybe this is an indication of how great wing backs were, defenders were twice as likely than forwards to get a 10 plus point return. So I remember Antonio started the season very well, but the likes of James, Chilwell, Trent, Cancelo, they're all going to get this 29% defender percentage up as high as it is. And I guess this is suggesting that you would want maybe a back 4 or a back 5 instead of 2 or 3 playing forwards. So depending on the classifications that come out, when the game is launched for next season, I think this is pretty useful information to take into next season. On the right is another pie chart that describes where the 10 plus points occurred with home compared with away. And the result was a little bit less one-sided than I thought. 55% of these hauls were obtained at home. And I thought, yeah, that might be a bit more away. Maybe there's a bit of COVID bias in there. Maybe in seasons gone by, this would have been a bigger percentage in the home territory. But maybe with, some empty stadia and teams at home maybe not being as potent. I don't know. I thought it might be 60% plus. So it's still, this suggests probably better to captain, say, at home than away if you had a complete 50-50 decision to make, because you're a bit more likely to get a haul at home, but it's not maybe as one-sided as I thought. Okay, the second of 3 slides on this is I wanted to make almost a bit of a crib sheet for myself of players this season that have done the business, basically. This is any player that has got 3 or more 10 plus point hauls. So the most potent person on this this list, according to this metric, is Son. He got 11 10 plus point returns in 21-22 season. Salah, surprisingly, is a bit behind. I mean, Salah was the top point scorer, but this suggests that he got a few bigger returns than Son, but Son was a bit more consistent. Salah got 10 of these returns, whereas Son got 11. And then you go right down to the players that got only 3 returns. We're looking at the likes of Buendia, Mings. There's 2 goalkeepers on this list, Lloris and Jose Sarr from Wolves. So it's just quite a nice indicator of, as I say, who is able to do these hauls multiple times. If you're going to bring in someone that's only done it once, someone not on this list, that might really be a one-off, but these are the players that have been able to repeatedly do it. So I'm going to have this just up my sleeve a little bit when I'm looking at players for next season, because what they've done last season, if they're still in the league, this is going to be quite useful. And also it's quite useful to look at this when the prices come out, sort of from right to left, and think, well, who's the first player I come across with the new pricing that seems a bit of a bargain? If you were to have this information at the beginning of last season, you go from right to left and think, okay, well, Son's quite expensive, but not as expensive as say, Salah, so Son would be a great person to go for. And then you come across, say, Bowen. What was he last season, starting at 7.5? You think, right, well, he's a bargain, get him in. So maybe this season, the next person on the list might be, if Saka's were reasonably priced, maybe Trossard, Townsend at Everton. That's quite surprising. Andros Townsend. Wow. He had 6 double-digit returns. And say Maddison at Leicester, also 6 double-digit returns. He might get favourable pricing. So as I say, grab this from Twitter if you think this might be useful. And then the third slide on this 10 plus point haul topic is I wanted to look at where did these players do these 10 plus point returns. Was it home or away, but did goalkeepers do something particular against a particular opposition? Did defenders? So I've got here on the left where 10 plus point returns occurred by position and against which opposition. And this is when teams are playing away from home. It's a bit tricky to get your head around, but the Arsenal top left figure of goalkeepers, say with 4, which is a bit of an outlier I'll come to in a minute, that is how many times did a goalkeeper who visited the Emirates score 10 plus points. So Martinez springs to mind, Foster springs to mind. He got a penalty save at the Emirates last season. Can't remember who the other 2 were. So that is if you're playing Arsenal at home on the left. On the right, the biggest standout here for me is Southampton defenders is very high with 12 compared to any other defences. That suggests that when Let's say Chelsea are playing at Stamford Bridge against Southampton. Chelsea's defenders are very likely to get 10+ point returns. There's some limitations to this, of course. The classification of players isn't black and white, and so a defender last season might be a midfielder next season, but you get the idea. You can see that midfielders, they do have quite a large number in some of these teams. But yeah, it was the two that I mentioned going through, which was just crazy. All of these teams, every team, home or away last season, a goalkeeper was able to do the business against one team once, except for Arsenal at the Emirates, where 4 visiting keepers were able to get 10+ point returns. I don't think we can probably read too much into this, but I think if you had a 50-50 decision between 2 goalkeepers, if one of them was visiting the Emirates in the first 10 games or something of next season, maybe go for them, because last season 4 times Arsenal had a goalkeeper visiting and getting a big point score. And similarly, Southampton, for some reason, defenders, when they are playing Southampton and Southampton are away, they did really well. What I'm going to do with this on a further iteration of my ticker, which we're coming to in a moment, is, and you might have seen this last season when we're doing the sort of game week to game week reviews and videos, was put these numbers and make the corresponding fixtures bold on my ticker for defences and attacks. So for example, if Leeds 14 value on the right for midfielders in bright red, a team that is playing Leeds, a team at home that is playing Leeds, their midfielders should be sort of highlighted bold, because history tells us that when you play Leeds away, you are likely to get a double-digit return if you're a midfielder. So moving on to the second topic of tonight, which is the ticker. So I've updated this, and obviously with the fixtures release, this is what quite a few content creators are doing, and fair enough. If you are a reviewer and you don't have access to a ticker, then feel free to use this. But if you've already got access to Fantasy Football Scout or plenty of other ones on Twitter, then of course use those. I think the one I'm producing here is good because it does have a few things that I know some other tickers don't. For example, I've got an attack and defence one. This is the attack one. Defence will come to in a moment. And this ticker does take into account how good a team is, not just how good the opponent is. So you see a lot of tickers that will just have, let's say, Bournemouth away is bright blue. But if you're looking for a player from Nottingham Forest, if you're looking at Nottingham Forest, they're playing Bournemouth, should that be as blue as if Man City are playing Bournemouth? In my opinion, no. So using that example here, Man City are playing Bournemouth in game week 2, and that fixture is bright blue, whereas Nottingham Forest are playing Bournemouth in game week 6, and that fixture is blue but not as blue. So that takes into account that Nottingham Forest are not as good a team as Man City. And into this ticker goes non-penalty XG, non-penalty XG conceded, and form home and away of all those metrics. So bright blue is good and dark red is bad. And then on the right you have a couple of sortings of how you can quickly look at how a team is ranked. So for example, the first column called next 6 on the right, that's basically what team has the best fixtures over the next 6. I tend to do it for the next 6 for attack, and then the next 8 for defence. And next to that is a next 6 weighted column, which is pretty similar at this stage of the season. Man City have the best fixtures over the next 6, and Man City have the best fixtures over the next 6 when you weight the first fixtures more than the 6th fixture, say. So a couple of interesting things from this. The top 5, I'm going on next 6 weighted here for sort of most of this discussion, is quite, one would say, well-known big teams. In order from first to fifth, it's Man City, Spurs, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Arsenal. So it's not massively surprising, that list, in a way, but I think that also confirms that these teams actually have really good opening fixtures. It's been said on quite a few pods I've been listening to that, I mean, particularly Man City, they've got really good opening fixtures. You have to go into the 6th best team for next 6 weighted fixtures, which is Brentford, to think, oh, okay, that's maybe somewhere where we could get differentials and maybe some bargains when the prices are revealed. Brighton in 7th is interesting. They've got a good start. Leicester in 8th and Aston Villa in 9th. So yeah, I think the top 5 is not a massive surprise, but after that you can start to think about maybe some teams to target and get some bargains from. It's worth mentioning this is obviously team based. This doesn't really tell you whether you should go, say, for Son over Kane. And this ticker can't really ever do that. That is more a case of, which players in form, which players doing well with the eye test, who's on penalties, etc. But that's particularly useful, obviously, with defences, because often it's sometimes quite 50-50 and not a huge difference depending on which defender you go from a team. Okay, on to defence ticker. Same idea here. Rankings on the right, blue to red. The top 5, next 8 ranked fixtures. Man City have the best fixtures at the start of the season. Liverpool are 2nd, Spurs 3rd, Chelsea 4th, and Arsenal 5th. I mean, Arsenal, there might be some decent priced assets there. I'm sure Saka will get a bit of a rise, but there's been quite a chat about if Jesus is to move. Tierney's back, he could be quite interesting. But then again, when you go past 5th place, then things start to get interesting, and this is where some differentials and some cheap enablers might come in. Brentford are 6th. I mean, they've got United at the start. It shouts out maybe as being quite a tricky fixture, but Brentford finished the season well, especially at home. It looks like their home fixtures here are quite bold. Brighton in 7th. Crystal Palace in 8th is quite surprising, seeing as they've got Liverpool away and Man City in there. But again, their home fixtures are very blue, and that suggests that at home they have good XGC conceded, and perhaps the teams they're playing at home didn't perform very well away. So Arsenal maybe went very potent away, Villa went very potent away, perhaps. Wolves is quite an interesting one. I see quite a few people talking about Johnny. Say this suggests that they're 15th. This suggests that defensively they're not great to go for, but that is a team that attacking wise is quite different. They're 9th and 12th in next 6 and next 6 weighted. So it's worth having a look at how teams compare attack and defence, because again, a limitation of just seeing one ticker from other sources, there is quite a big difference, I think, between the stats that go into it for attack and defence, so be careful with that. As I say, one thing I am looking to do soon is give this an update and put some bold fixtures on there, so that not only do you have colour red to blue as an indication of whether a team's worth investing in, but whether they last season were fixtures where 10 plus points tended to happen. And also I'm going to increase the the metrics on the right, where you can look at not just next 6, but a few other things that maybe come out of fixtures, depending on how you sort them. So that's everything I wanted to share tonight. I hope you found that interesting, and as I say, it's a bit of a recycle of things I put on Twitter over the last few days, but I thought it was worth putting it out there and discussing it a little bit more. If you enjoyed what you've seen tonight, please give it a like, give it a share and subscribe. Yeah, really interested to get the YouTube numbers up. It's been quite interesting the last week. I've had quite a few more support on Twitter, which is great, and hoping to have some more people watching this ready for next season. So yeah, thanks everybody, and see you soon. Bye.